Yeah. Uh.
Into some of the listener questions. This question is for Dr. Rollins. Why is it that I'm still dealing with trauma from my childhood? I feel like I'm still dealing with scars, like my father walking out on us when I was a kid. How do I deal with that now so that it doesn't remain an issue in my future relationships going forward?
Mhm. I think number one, the fact that the person is aware of it is the first step because you know it's an issue. The
Mhm.
second thing, Tracy mentioned therapy. I say therapy saved my life when my mom was killed. I also believe in coaching. That's the reason why when I got my PhD, I decided to do life coaching because that way, some people are more open to that, and then I can send them over to a therapist if they need it.
Mhm.
In working with that therapist, it's just figuring out, okay, why is this still bothering me? And I think it bothers us when we only see the negative. Um,
Mhm.
for instance, I'm a child of divorce. I thought of that all the time, like everybody else had their dad in the house, but I didn't. But it
Mhm.
also made me very independent. I was blessed to, when my mom left the home and took us, we went to live with my grandparents. I was blessed to be raised with my grandparents. So
Mhm.
when I looked at the situation and only saw the bad and didn't see that there was good that came out of that bad situation, I
Mhm.
think it changed my perspective on it. Yeah, ideally, my parents would have been together, but not really because they were oil and water. And so
Mhm.
I think I had the best situation. So really, I think it's changing your perspective, but also figuring out how do I work through this in a healthy way.
Okay.
Gail, can I add to that too? Can I
Absolutely.
add something? So, one thing that Dr. Rollins said about you forgiving yourself, and it made me think about gratitude.
Mhm,
And one of the things that I do is, what am I grateful for? Because everything can seem really bad when you sit and you sit and you sit and you sit in it.
Mhm.
But what I figured out too is that if I can write about all the great things that I have in my life, they far outweigh all of the bad things. This thing that I'm going through, even
Mhm.
though the thing with my mom is not the best, I do have great childhood memories. I even look at today. I look at my kids, like they're great. I look at my life. It's great. I have great friends.
Mhm.
I'm smart. I'm all the things that I feel good about, write them down so that I'm not sitting in woe is me and what did I do wrong
I love
and
that.
nothing is good, nothing great is going to happen.
that's
There's so much that we have to be grateful for.
Absolutely. I love it. This next question was for Tracy and myself. It says, congratulations on making a decision to protect your peace. And Tracy, you kind of already dealt with this, so I'll give them my answer. It says, were there traumas from your childhood that may have crept into your adult relationships? If so, had you recognized that you had those traumas sooner, could you have avoided some of what you dealt with in your marriage? So I will say, I know Tracy talked about her relationship with her mom, and she can add to that uh, if she wants to, but I'll say you get there when you get there. So, yes, there were things about my childhood that I'm dealing with now that had I dealt with and gotten therapy sooner, I would have never, accepted or lived, allowed myself to sit in a lot of what I did. So, but everyone has a different tolerance level, and when you're ready, when the song says, "Know when to hold them and know when to fold them." So when you're
Hmm.
ready, you know when to fold them, and I knew when it was time to fold them. Most relationships have challenges, but not all relationships have trauma. So mine
Mm.
did, and Tracy's did, but not all of them do. Uh, there was no physical abuse or anything like that, but there was, a lot of mental trauma. There are many, many great relationships, but hurt and broken people will hurt other people,
The
period.
broken people.
I mean, that's
Hmm.
just period. So we have to do better at recognizing the damage that's been done to us, getting help to repair it, and just, being able to just dig in and do the work and figure out what we need to do to be better for ourselves, because we can never show up and our whole self when we're broken. So,
Yeah,
Tracy, you
I
want to
agree.
add anything?
Yeah, I think, I don't know that knowing what I know now would have made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't know what you don't know. And I also think that every individual has something in them. So my trauma or my um, childhood things affected me. Those things that he went through affected him. The things that my mother went through as a child affected who she is and how she showed up in our relationship, and how I showed up in my relationship and my marriage. So I don't know that knowing sooner would have made a difference because you discover it when you discover it. The thing about it is that doing something about it and owning it and accepting it and working through it to be better on this side of it versus thinking, gosh, if I would have did this, I would have did that, because then that's just another form of traumatizing yourself. I just feel like I don't know that I would be in a different place. I really don't know, but I know that I'm in a good space right now, and I'm glad that I know what I know, and I'm glad that I'm able to either share it or even live my life and walk my walk a little differently.
Mm, great. I love that. This question is for me. It says, do you feel empowered now that you've started the rebuilding process? And is it still as painful for you as it was when it first happened? I definitely feel empowered, but I also feel like it's my responsibility to share my journey so that other people can learn from my experiences. The rebuilding process to me, and Tracy, I'd love you to speak to this. It's so hard because it starts with understanding things that are very, very painful and all those past traumas that you've experienced. So trying to unpack all of that stuff from your childhood. And I think I'm very grateful for what happened in my marriage, because had my marriage not ended as horrifically as it did, I probably wouldn't have sought the counseling to understand what it is about myself that would allow me to stay in a situation where I was treated as less than I deserve. So, um, as they say, it didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And I think ultimately, though I feel like it's pretty painful a lot of times to dig back, the trauma started long before my husband. It just
Yeah.
piled on. I chose someone who was emotionally unavailable because of all the other trauma I had had throughout my childhood. So I put myself in a position to continue to, because I was so used to chaos as a child. That's all I knew. So if I met a man, like my first husband was calm and very sweet, and I couldn't receive that because my life, my whole childhood had been chaos. And Dr. Rollins, I love your take on that. So my take is that I was so used to chaos, I sought out someone who could bring me more chaos. I wasn't ready for someone who was calm and emotionally pleasing, or just a good person. Can you speak to that a little bit? Do you see that a lot, where people who grew up in chaos, just that's what they seek out?
That's true, and we don't even realize it
Mm,
until we start doing our work.
right,
That's like, why
exactly.
am I attracted to a certain kind of person? Well, I'm trying to replace or duplicate, and
Mm-hmm,
it's not. I think if everything would have went perfectly in your lives, that would have been beautiful, but you wouldn't have learned not a thing.
mm-hmm,
Yet here you
Hmm.
are, you both learned some things that are bringing you back to who you really are. And so I think that's beautiful. I also think it's beautiful that both of you have children who came out of those marriages, that I don't care how bad the marriage was, your children are priceless.
mm-hmm,
Hmm.
Now you can teach them, as you're learning this, you can teach them ways to be in relationships that you didn't know anything about.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
That's so true. That's so true. And learning, especially with my children, how not to be what my mother was to me. That to me is like one of the biggest lessons
mm-hmm,
throughout all of this for me has been that I want to show up for my children in such a different way than
mm-hmm,
how my mother has chosen, well, how she was traumatized to show up for me
Yeah.
in my life. So you're spot on with that.
Mm.
But I love, Tracy, that you're acknowledging that your mother's been through some things too, because I think it's easy for us to demonize someone who isn't doing what we want. But I always ask, well, I wonder what that person went through that made them behave in the way or do the things that they did. And
Amen.
showing grace.
Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. Back to what we said, hurt people hurt people. So yeah,
true.
absolutely, absolutely. I say that all the time. Like no person would behave or treat someone in such a horrific way if they weren't in a lot of pain themselves.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
not that I'm excusing anybody's behavior. I'm just saying that, that person was broken.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
Gail,
Mhm.
you said you sought that out. And
right.
I think all of us probably need to be intentional to say what attracted us to the people that we're with. And when I was married the first time, I grew up with my parents not being divorced. I thought a man would complete me. So I
Mhm,
looked for
Mm.
somebody to complete me. And
mm,
no wonder I never felt like I was whole. And
that's
so that's
right.
the reason why when I got into the second marriage, I had the time to work on me. And I was like,
Mhm,
oh, he don't complete me. I come as a package.
mhm,
And I
Mm.
had more value for myself. And I
right.
think by me valuing me, I brought more to the table.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Rollins, this question's for you. How does a person know if they've been traumatized because you don't always know it? And what happens if you can't afford counseling? Are there places that you can go to get help if you don't have the money or the insurance?
Good. That's good. Good question. I think you know that you've been traumatized if you keep having troubling feelings that are repetitive. Like you find yourself often in situations where you feel I'm not good enough, or this is devastating to me. I think if you find yourself in sad spaces and places often, if you find yourself not valuing yourself, it's often connected to trauma. I I do believe that there are places out there that can help even if you don't have money. That's the reason why we have a nonprofit called the Whole Heart Center that you mentioned in the intro. And it was this idea that we were going to help people regardless of their ability to pay. So
Mhm,
people come in every day that don't have enough money, but I have coaches who are willing to give the time and the energy to help that person. Uh, Throughout my life, there are times when people helped me when they didn't have to. So it's really this idea of giving back. And I think because our community is so communal, we know we go to our sisters and our friends and sometimes our pastor, and there are places and people in our lives who aren't going to charge us because sometimes all I need is somebody who will listen to me.
mhm, mhm.
Mhm.
That's what I do to my clients. They're like, oh my God, you helped me. All I did was listen. And
Listen.
when I created that safe space to listen, they heard themselves and said, you know what? This is what I need to do. I might ask a question or two. I tell nobody what to do because I tell them I have a hard enough job keeping my own life straight, but I listen and I'm
Mhm.
there for them so that they can make their decisions. And I
Yeah,
think you can get that for free some places, or you can go to nonprofits or go in your community. It's the help is available.
awesome. Awesome. That's great. And aren't there sometimes hotlines that you can call for help if you're feeling sad or depressed?
Absolutely. In many communities in Maryland, you can call 211.
Mhm.
211 is also often connected to like the Mental Health Association. They also have they connect you to the suicide hotline and those places, but they give you all these resources that if you need help, in my area, if you call 211, you can even go in and see a therapist for free.
Okay.
And I know that it works because
Mm.
I've taken people there, I've driven them myself, even family members.
Wow.
Mm.
Okay. That's awesome. This question's for all of us. It said, when did you start to feel strong again, and when did you realize you were going
Mm.
to be okay and you were going to make it? I think the person is looking to trying to get a time frame of when it's going to stop, because it says, was it a month, 6 months, a year? Um, I, I'll start. I would love to tell you that the pain's going to be over in 30 days or whatever, but truthfully, I, each person's different and each person's experience is different. And, You know, it depends on what you're going through and what kind of help you're getting for yourself, trying to make yourself whole again. But you know, but the main thing for me is not to let anyone tell you you should be over that by now. Because people
No.
say that because they're tired of hearing about it. You should be over that by now. As long as you're doing the work to get better, it takes however long it takes. Just, you know,
Yeah.
keep pushing your way through it and just know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Tracy, you want to go, and then Dr. Rollins, you can speak to that.
I am going to agree with you. I don't think there's a timeline on it, and I think that um, it takes as long as it takes,
Mhm,
because each day you're growing stronger, and whether it's, you know, a sickness or a death or a divorce, there's so much through that process that you're going through,
mhm,
that to tell someone you'll feel fine in 30 days is not true. My mother is still alive, so I'm still, when I talk to her, I'm still reliving some things. I'm learning not to get triggered, but
mhm.
I'm still learning some things. I'm still, you know, going through the finishing of a divorce. So it's not, it's been over a year. So, but I'm getting stronger every day. And that's the best that I can do, is just to be the best person, show up every single day as the best person I can be. And remembering that you can't let go at the same time and hold on to stuff. So
Mhm.
in order to let it go and for you to move on, you got to let it go. You
That's
can't hold on and let go at the same time. And
right.
that's a hard lesson.
Yes. Dr. Rollins, you want to end us with your thoughts?
I think that I think about what Tracy said about gratitude, and I think my healing, I knew my healing was in progress when I had moments where I could be grateful. No matter what it was that I went through, I could see also the brighter side of it. I think it's so important that anybody who's going through any kind of trauma realizes that you're not always, you know, it's not a movie. The happy ending is this is all over and I don't feel it. I, my first husband died. I am happily married in a second marriage, but I remember when my second son graduated from college and my current husband was with me, I cried like a baby
Mm,
because his dad should have been there. And the
mm,
Hmm.
trauma of what I felt for my son, what I felt for me. I love my husband, but I wanted this
He's
picture that I
there.
had created. So
mm,
it's understanding that I can experience the gratitude, but I can also have the reality of knowing that it's always going to hurt a little bit, but I'm
mhm,
not stuck there. I keep moving forward.
mhm. I love that. Well, thank you so much, ladies. I want to thank my guest, Miss Tracy Burr, for her transparency and honesty, and the Dr. Denise Hall Brown Rollins, the woman. I want to thank you. And as always, thank you, my G Squad, for sitting in with us today. My hope is that you gain something from this segment, because it's always my intention to enlighten my squad. So until the next time, be blessed, be empowered, and be true to your purpose. Love you, G Squad.